Well, we're pumped to talk to you today about overcoming a huge lie for leaders out there, and that is that busyness and worth are directly correlated. And that's a
Yeah.
big issue, and it's underneath the surface for a lot of leaders. They may not, think about that in that way. They just go, "Well, I got meetings, I'm doing things, I'm doing great, the business is great," and they start to go, "If that goes away, well, that's
Yeah.
my identity too."
Yeah.
How have you seen that play out?
Oh my gosh, I see it play out in so many people's lives, but especially in my own. And I think that a lot of times we are going through identity crisis as we are evolving as human beings. There's this idea of titles and status and numbers and charts and even things like women of influence. Like all of those things are these beautiful ways that we kind of put our stake in the ground and say, I'm important and what I do matters. But a lot of times we're living lives that look good, but lives that don't feel good. And I think that's where this busyness really can take away from what really matters. And I also think that's why a lot of us wear busyness as a badge of honor. It's like, how are you, George? Good, busy, all the things. And you're like, oh, you think that means that you're successful. But some of the most successful people I've met, and I think when I feel most successful, it's when I feel peace, when I'm not busy, and when I'm working from a place that isn't urgent. And so it's really an interesting time, I think, in society as we're evaluating, how are we moving forward and what does that look like?
Yeah. And, Dave Ramsey's been teaching financial peace for so many years now. And now more than
Yes.
ever, people all over the world are going, I just want some peace in my life. There's so much anxiety.
Yeah.
There's so much busyness. There's so much going on. There's so much information you're inundated with. It's hard to find that peace sometimes, especially
Yeah.
as leaders.
Yeah,
That's big.
absolutely.
So I want to talk about your new book, How Are You Really? Love the title.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as I saw that, I was like, I need to read this book.
Yes.
You talk about the fact that you were addicted to always taking on more. Were you the type of person that equated more work to more worth?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm a 3 on the Enneagram. I'm an achiever through and through. And work is easy for me. Like I am a workhorse. I had my first job cleaning limousines. I drove a forklift in a paper mill. Like I have always been a worker. And there's a line in my book where it talks about how I left the corporate world to become an entrepreneur. And it was like, I quit that side, but I didn't quit the game. Like the game of the ladder climb, the game of more, the game of higher and higher and higher. And it's really interesting to me because I feel like it's really easy for a lot of us to just go into autopilot. And that autopilot is to work harder, work more, wake up earlier, do more, hustle. And we're at a really interesting place in society, specifically for women in business, with the Great Resignation, so many women leaving the workforce. And I feel like we're almost promoting 2 different camps. And I'm going to explain why I don't subscribe to that notion. I feel like there are 2 camps right now out there in the world. And it's either hustle harder, do more, wake up earlier, never sign off, always say yes. And then there's the manifestors, the people that are like, if I just say something, it'll come into fruition. If I say this 5 times fast. And I live in the middle. I live where the woo meets the work. I live where you can have the vision. You can pray about it. You can cast the vision, but you got to get up and do something about it. And so it's really interesting because when we think about this whole philosophy around working harder, I think that's easy for a lot of people. I think rest is actually the harder thing for most of us.
Oh, absolutely. It reminds me of the Dave Ramsey quote, pray like it all depends on God, work like it all depends on you. And that's
Yes.
exactly what that is we're going to meet in the middle and go, we're going to work really hard, and we're going to hope those efforts are blessed in the process, creating
Amen.
that success. But we can't just wish for it, and we can't just hustle out of our own volition either. We've got to have a happy balance there.
Amen.
That's
I love
good.
that.
So why do you think it's such a pitfall for leaders out there that we can't find that balance? We can't fully rest. We always are just going, we're not doing enough. Where does that come from?
So I remember when I had my first daughter, she's now 3.5. And I remember we had a really interesting journey in growing our family. It was a struggle. It was something that I deeply desired, and it wasn't happening. And when it finally happened, I remember being like, did I lose my mojo? Like, did I lose my spunk? Because all I want to do is count the eyelashes on this little girl and like take a back seat. Like nothing else matters. Email doesn't matter. Social media doesn't matter. None of it matters. And I remember one of my mentors in business said to me, he goes, Jenna, you are a lifestyle entrepreneur through and through. You are not this achievement-based entrepreneur. You find content, and it's not complacency. And that's the difference. And I remember when he told me this, I was like, oh my gosh, my eyes are open. Like, I just want to work so that I can have the life. Like, I don't want to live to work. I want to work to like have the life that I want. And what I think is so interesting is so many of us are achievement-based, but we keep setting these goals that aren't aligned with our version of success. It's society's version of success. And when we arrive and it doesn't feel like we thought it would, we think, oh, maybe I just need to go a little further. Maybe I need to make more. Maybe I need to do more. We keep pushing the finish line away from us, right? Have you ever done that, George, where you're like, okay, once I get here, I'll rest. Once I get here, I'll celebrate. And it's like we inch that finish line further and further away, almost resisting rest, peace, joy, celebration, all of these things, because we just think, oh, the next step will be it, the next opportunity, the next milestone. And so I think it's really easy for leaders to do this because we get so caught up in doing more, in being more, in making a greater impact because we care more. But a lot of times that's at the cost of our own joy and our own peace.
Yeah, some great reminders in there. And that's hard for me, especially with financial goals. You know, I'm a giant money nerd here at Ramsey. And so it's hard for me to go, all right, we paid off the debt. We paid off the house. What's next? Let's upgrade the car. At some point, you just have to go, we have enough.
Yes.
Just relax, man.
Yes.
Chill out. And it's hard because, you know, a lot of people listening to this, they're the achiever type. And so they want to check it off the list. They want to get the next medal. And so it's really hard to sit back and go, I have enough. I'm doing this out of a place that is healthy and not out of a place of I'm not enough. I'm not doing enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I tell you a quick story about that? Because it just makes me think about a time in my life where we got on this bandwagon of more and it wasn't more. So I remember when I was 3 years into my business, I had left the corporate world, bought a camera from Craigslist, turned it into a photography business. Within 3 years, I was making six figures. And growing up in a family where my dad worked at a paper mill for 30 years, my mom was a teacher, making six figures was a massive deal, right? Like it was the goal. And I remember when I hit that, I remember taking a shower that day and thinking, like, why are the angels not singing? Like, where are my like gold cellophane balloons celebrating that I hit this massive accomplishment? And I really checked in with myself and I was like, how do I feel right now? And I was like, I feel so burnt out. Like I'm exhausted. I'm not happy. And what's fascinating, and it's really aligned with what Dave teaches too, is figuring out that place of enough, that safety and security that allows you to feel that peace in your life. And the next day, my husband got home from work and I was like, you know what? I was happier when I made $50,000 a year. I was happier when I had weekends and time with my family. How can we go back to that and live in a way that allows us to do that so that I can have my life back? Like I can have time back. And what's actually crazy, George, is that when we made this decision, I said, next year, I'm booking half the amount of work. I'm drawing a line in the sand. I ended up scaling to $1 million company that year because I finally had time to think about what do I want to do and what am I called to do and what do I want to try and how do I want to build something that doesn't require me to keep pushing and keep moving and keep going. And I wasn't doing it to make more money. I was actually doing it to get my time back. But I think that time above everything else is our currency. And so it's like for entrepreneurs that are just pushing to make more, to do more, to pay off more, where do you draw that line to get back your time? Because you might not make a different business, or you might not start a side hustle, or you might not, invest in a certain way, but you might get that time back that gives you that freedom that you're really desiring above all the things.